They are falling all around me. They are falling all around me. They are falling all around me. The strongest leaves of my tree. Every paper brings the news that every paper brings the news that.
Good evening and welcome to Sinister Wisdom's event to celebrate the life of Elana Dykewomon on the first anniversary of her death. And thank you to BALA, the Bay Area Lesbian Archives, for joining us as co-sponsors of this event. My name is Julie Enzer, and I am pleased to welcome you to this evening's event. We were listening to the beginning of the song, They Are Falling All Around Me, recorded by Sweet Honey in the Rock. We'll hear that song in its entirety at the end of our event tonight. As we begin, I am going to light a candle in memory of Elana. I had in the script a Yahrzeit candle, but that should have been lit last night as the sun was going down. So I'm lighting a regular candle to remember her. And I invite people at home, if you would like to invite a candle or do something else to ritually create this space to remember Elana, to please do so. As is our tradition at Sinister Wisdom, as we begin these events, I want to spend a moment for a land acknowledgement. We are all around the United States and around the world, many of us on occupied, unceded land. I am in what is now Dover, Florida, traditional homelands and territories of the Seminole. I invite you to insert into the chat your location and acknowledge the land on which you live as we pause for a moment to recognize the histories of war and colonization, and to imagine and work for a world where we have a fair and equitable distribution of resources. You'll see as we go through this evening's event that it is a bit quieter and not following the formal script of our usual Sinister Wisdom events. There are three parts of this program. I'm doing a brief introduction. Then we are going to hear a reading by Elana recorded in 1998. It's really beautiful and I'm excited to share it with you. We will then conclude with some words by Elana's friend and comrade Tova Stabin that she's written just for this event. To begin, let me first say that Sinister Wisdom was gifted the book by Elana to share freely with women in the community. We had earlier copies of They Will Know Me by My Teeth, a book that Elana published in 1976 with her poetry. It's a really special book that was made entirely by women and was, as stated on the back of the book, to be sold to and shared with women only. We did distribute the 55 copies of that we had last week. Now we have the wonderful collection Moon Creek Road. This is Elana's 2003 collection of short stories. The books are available free of charge to women who want to have them. If you don't have a copy and would like to have one, or would like to share one with a local library or other women in your community, feel free to email me, julie@sinisterwisdom.org, to request copies. You can just email your mailing address. And if you want to contribute to this distribution project, we have over 800 copies of the book that we will distribute. So thank you to everyone who's already contributed to that through our Facebook fundraiser and through our distribution over the past 2 weeks. So as we begin our program this evening, a few notes. First, you'll note everyone's mic is muted as you come in. Please keep your microphone muted throughout the program. As the program proceeds, feel free to chat, to share your memories of Elana in the chat conversation. We will make that available tomorrow on the website, sinisterwisdom.org/Elana. If you need technical assistance this evening, chat with me or Max. Both of us are on tap to help you with anything technical. And we are recording this event and we'll make it available starting tomorrow or Thursday at sinisterwisdom.org/Elana. As I said, to begin our program, we have a recording of Elana reading at the Poetry Center at San Francisco State University in San Francisco. She did this reading in 1998 with Lucy Jane Bledsoe. Though we are not including Lucy's reading this evening, it is fantastic and I commend it to you. And we are making the full digitized recording of the event available on the Sinister Wisdom YouTube channel. And we will link to that video from the Sinister Wisdom page for Elana as well. In this video, you will first see an introduction by Jewel Gomez of Elana. Jewel was the director of the Poetry Center at the time that this reading happened in 1998. Then, in a little oddness, we edited it so that you will hear Elana first responding to an audience question at the end of the program about the women in print movement and what it meant to her and her work. I thought that her comments were really interesting, so we dropped them in at the beginning of the video. Then you will hear Elana read a poem and then read from her novel. She introduces that. The full video is just under 25 minutes, and I will join us again on audio and video after we listen to this reading by Elana. Thank you all for joining us. And now, Max, feel free to share the video.
Elana Dykwomon's book, Riverfinger Women was one of the early classics of the women's movement. She has since published 4 other books, including her most recent historical novel, Beyond the Pale, which was nominated for an American Library Association award. In one of her poems from the collection, Nothing is as Sweet as the Taste, Elana writes, quote, "Experience was supposed to be our friend, and we learn, but as we learn, we get worn away." For any writer trying to create against the tides of ignorance and sexism and anti-Semitism and heterosexism, name an ism, and it'll be existing in the publishing world. For any writer trying to create and not get worn away is a major accomplishment. To not be worn down and worn out so that bitterness and anger deflate your vision and dull your words. After years of writing and teaching, Elana Dykewomon continues to reach for the sharp and shining places in her work. The historical novel is only as good as its characters as its words. In Beyond the Pale, we have a fresh piece of historical literature from a perspective very rarely shown in our literature. Words that are not worn away, words that are sharp, words that are touching. Please welcome Elana Dykewomon.
I was very lucky in 1973. I had written a book when I was 21, just out of college, because I didn't know what else to do with myself. And I wrote it in about a month. As opposed to this one, which took me 10 years. So it's a big range there. I don't want to exactly attribute speed to it, but it was easier. I didn't have to do any research. Anyway, I wrote this book, and one of my professors, Emmett Williams at California Institute of the Arts, had me send it to a New York publisher whose name is gone from my mind, who had originally published Henry Miller in the States, and who was starting a new series of feminist pornography, he thought, He was looking to tap the bored housewife market of the that he saw as the emerging feminist movement, I guess. And so I sent it to him, and he sent it back saying it wasn't pornographic enough. Then I sent it to Knopf, and it was during the Vietnam War, and then I found out that Knopf was owned by a multinational corporation that was part of the war machine, interestingly enough. But Knopf sent it back with a note saying it wasn't a novel, and thank you very much. So I was relieved of the responsibility of having to turn Knopf down. Then I was working in a women's center, and I saw the notice up on the board for this new women's press that was starting, and sent it to them, and they accepted it, and it was on Daughters Inc.'s second list, and their first list, Ruby Fruit Jungle, was on their first list, and so it was really the very first beginnings of lesbian and women's novels, and my idea at the time, which was a fairly radical idea in 1973-4. It seems kind of silly now, but the idea at the time was to write a lesbian novel with a happy ending. In 1974, there was no such thing before the first wave of the women's movement. At the end of novels in which lesbians happened to be characters, they almost universally got killed by falling trees, or they committed suicide, or some terrible fate happened to them. And it was wonderful. I was a young person, and I was excited by hanging out in New York with all the Daughters, women and writers, and I stayed with women's publishing ever since. I published even more independently than that. I self-published a couple of books, and I was editor of the international lesbian feminist journal Sinister Wisdom for 8 years. My latest book has just been published by Press Gang, which is the oldest still existing women's press in North America from that period. And they also started out with a regular printing press, and they were the last ones to give up the actual business of printing. Talk about undercapitalized. It's hard enough to run a publishing business, but to run a printing business with equipment that's falling apart constantly. The men sell it to you as a joke. Try to fix this. And I've known a lot of people who did fix it and held it together with rubber bands and published wonderful books, but finally that effort got to be too much. So now we have these wonderful women's presses still struggling to stay alive in the market. This problem that Ruth was talking about, where the women's presses bear the burden of developing talent, finding people who are interesting, really working with them in editorial processes, marketing their works, showing that there's an audience for the work. So they do all of the sort of expensive audience building, hand-holding kind of stuff for the authors. Then, when the authors are proven to be successful, larger companies come and pick them up and often bury their work then. So the women's presses don't get to reap the benefits of their success, and then their work, on the other hand, gets buried. Sometimes it doesn't get buried in the case of some very successful women writers, but often it does. And I'm very pleased to be here at the Poetry Center this afternoon. Because it is the Poetry Center, I thought I'd read a very short poem from my book, the title poem, Nothing Will Be as Sweet as the Taste. This was also published by a small press in England, in London, Only Women Press, which has been in existence for about 20 years. And this book came out in 1995. If you were my home, I would be your garden. If I was your garden, I would want you to cultivate me, to plant, water, weed, harvest, and like I promised, I would feed you. You can always eat what straggles up or what's gone to seed, but nothing will be as sweet as the taste of the woman you tended purposefully. Beyond the Pale is a long book, as you can see. It took me 10 years to write it. So I'm not going to skip around. I'm going to read just from one section. It's an ancestor book, not about my specific blood relations, but about recovering the Jewish lesbians who came before us, ordinary women and political activists whose lives can give us courage and hope. The voice of one of the main characters, Chava Meyer, came to me in the form of a poem in 1987, and the book started as an attempt to find out who she was. As soon as her life started to take shape, many other women appeared who also had something to say. The section I'm about to read takes place on the Lower East Side in late 1905. Chava Meyer saw her parents killed in the Kishinev pogrom of 1903 and has emigrated to New York with her Odessa cousins, the Petrovskys. In this scene, she's 16 and she works as a tobacco stripper. Her cousin Rose, with whom she's shared a bed for the last 2 years, is 15 and a seamstress. Bina, who does piecework at home, is Rose's mother and was Chava's mother's half-sister. Aaron and Harry are Rose's brothers. One of my concerns in writing Beyond the Pale, among many, was to show how poetry was part of the daily life and imaginations of regular folks. So I'm going to start with a short reflective section that leads into the dialogue and action of the scene. This is in Chava Meyer's voice. Sometimes I'd find myself scribbling down a few lines. I thought of them as pictures. From my entire childhood in Kishinev, what did I have? One photograph. But if I could make an outline of someone with words, I'd be able to hold them in my memory. I wouldn't always live with the Petrovskys, I knew. From time to time, I would be struck with the desire not to forget, a gesture, the way the circles of gaslight reflected a small bit of red in Aunt Bina's hair. In Russia, revolution. In New York, sewing machines on layaway. Late, even my aunt would sometimes stop stitching when she thought we were asleep, looking around guilty, frowning, would sigh, pick up the Jewish Daily Forward, and read. Aunt Bina, did you see this headline? I asked, pulling the newspaper from under a pile of ribbons. No, Aaron or Ephraim left it here. I've been too busy with this trimming to look. That must be what had the streets in such a commotion, Rose said, looking over my shoulder. What is it? Bina turned towards us for the first time since we'd come in, troubled. I pointed to a column halfway down the page. There was a pogrom in Odessa. The revolution is crushed. No, in Odessa, what else does it say? The Tsar was only pretending to give in to the cry for reform. He unleashed the forces of the netherworld. There were attacks everywhere, as if by prearranged signal. Jews and the intelligentsia are the chief targets. In Odessa, estimated losses in the millions of rubles, over 200 dead, 3,000 homeless. 200 dead. Aunt Bina put the trousers down. She looked around the tenement room at the air shaft window where moldy dust clung like carpeting, the piles of sewing and rags, a rabble shouting for attention. She put a hand over her face. Rose and I had come home for a quick dinner before night school. Now Rose put her arms around her mother, her head on Bina's shoulder. I could see them looking together at their friends, their relatives, their old streets, their synagogue, the Alte Chaim. They got out. When Mama and Papa were killed, Aunt Bina decided it was time. How can you know when to leave? Sometimes you know, but how? My sister Esther stayed as if it were still possible to make an ordinary life in Russia. Everyone acts as if death happens to someone else. Even if it happened to your half-sister, was that enough to make you give up everything, flee the country where you were born? What made Aunt Bina know that bribes would be useless when the mobs came? Bina had said to Isidore, "I don't care about the shop, the garden, the house. We have to go. Out of Russia, away from Odessa with its great opportunities for Jews." "Rose never saw a pogrom," she said. "God willing, she'll never have to." Rose looked at her mother, then at me. I looked away. She never saw a pogrom, but I... Suddenly I felt as if my heart was a pile of broken rock dropping through my stomach into my shoes. I could see my yellow-stained hands gripping the back of a chair, my knuckles turning white. Bina gestured Rose over to me. Rose took my hand. I could feel the calluses on her fingertips from sewing, the softness of her palm, but I couldn't respond. Rose pulled up a chair and sat down beside me, stroking the back of my hand, humming very quietly the folk song, "What a Beautiful Night." An old love song seemed an odd choice. Then I heard the melody for the lyrics, "I swear I'll never forget you unto death." Did my mother still remember me? Was she humming like Rose somewhere above us while she stitched the evening onto clouds with her mother and her mother before her? My mother was so sweet. When my stomach hurt, she'd bring me a plate of hot soup. I sucked in my cheeks and closed my eyes. Tears came anyway, but I held my breath so as to make no sound. Rose got another chair, pushed me into it gently, her hands on my shoulders. I put my head against Rose's belly and shook. Rose gathered me in her arms, humming still. Bina lit the gas stove to heat water. Rose smoothed my hair. "Maybe tonight we should skip class? We could rest. It wouldn't be a sin," she said after a while. I looked up at Rose and then sat straight. Although she had poured herself around me like honey, her forehead was creased, and I could see fear flickering behind her face. I noticed she'd torn one of her fingernails to the quick, and it was bleeding a little. "No, tonight of all nights we should go. There'll be news from Odessa, and we can see if there are words in English for these things." "English, Yiddish, Russian. How many languages do you need to say anti-Semite?" Bina said through clenched teeth, pouring tea into glasses for us, with lumps of sugar to suck on the side. Then there's a brief scene at night school from Rose's point of view. Where she's looking around and people are asking how you say coward and murderer and reactionary in English, and she's admiring how strong Hava is and sort of showing that she's beginning to have a little crush on her. Then they return from night school. Rose and I were allowed to close the door to our room because of Leon's presence, a boarder, a grown man, not just family, in the house. I sat fiddling with the laces of my boots. "Tell me what you're thinking about, Chava," Rose asked. Usually I said nothing or just how work was today, but Rose kept asking anyway. I guess she was lonely for a better conversationalist, and every once in a while I tried to do my part. That night it wasn't too hard. I was thinking about someone I met in Odessa. Someone I knew? Rose stretched to unbutton her skirt at the side. "I don't think you would know her. On the train from Kishinev, I was sitting next to my mother's midwife, Gutki. Do you remember when you met me at the station? They were there?" "Who?" "Gutki and Dovid." I noticed I was lacing my shoes back up. "No, I don't remember. Did you know them well?" "Hardly at all, though probably she came to our shul. I only remembered Gutki a little from Sarah's being born, but my mother said if it wasn't for Gutki, I would have killed her for not wanting to come out. I was born feet first and stubborn, she said." She was right, absolutely right. Rose was folding her shirtwaist against her body. She came and sat beside me in her slip and corset. I turned and knocked my knuckles against Rose's freckled shoulder. She hit me with a pillow. "You don't understand what I'm saying," I whined. "How can I understand what you're saying if you don't say anything? Help me undo this corset, will you?" I felt awkward, even though I'd done it 100 times, and she noticed. "What is it, Chava?" "The man who was with Gutki, the one you met at the train station?" "Yes, you don't remember?" Why should I? Because he wasn't a man. I cleared my throat. What do you mean he wasn't a man? What should he be, a dog? Everything has to be a joke by you. Look who's talking. All right, I'm listening. So you met a man who wasn't a man. You have to admit, it sounds like the beginning of a riddle. I think it is a riddle. Her easiness made it easier for me. I pried my boots off. I give up already. So what was he? A woman. He was a woman dressed to look like a man. Really? You know for sure? She rose and put all her clothes in the bureau carefully, smoothing them out before she closed the drawer. I think so. I remember when we first got to the station, Gutke called him Dovida, but Dovid in front of you. And then Gutke winked at me. Yes, I'm sure it was a woman. I stared at a stain on the wall just to the right of Rose's shoulder. I figured I should have been undressing too, but I couldn't seem to make a move off the edge of the bed. What a scandal. I never heard of such a thing. No, me either. That's why no one notices, I guess. They can't imagine it. Why would a woman do that? Rose asked. I don't know. Maybe if she wanted to travel alone safely, or if she wanted to be a bricklayer. A bricklayer? What girl wants to be a bricklayer? She's going to dress like a man. She could want to be something better, a rabbi at least. Rabbis have to have full beards, I said. Maybe she wanted to be a student at the university. But wasn't she old? All right, maybe a university teacher or a grain trader. Men can go anywhere they please to do business. Would you dress up like a man to do business? Rose was studying me, her hands on her hips. For some reason, I noticed that where her shoulder met her body, there was a little bulge of fat, just enough to curl a hand around. I don't know. I never thought of it before then. I thought maybe in Odessa all kinds of strange things could be ordinary. But I never saw anyone else like that while we were there, at least that I could tell. I never heard about such a thing even here in New York. Rose put her foot on the bottom drawer and rolled her stocking down slowly, as if she were studying each hair on her leg. Maybe it's something they don't tell us about because they think we're still children. Mama and Papa talk about everything with us. They think they're very modern. We shouldn't be ashamed of our minds or our bodies, they say. I don't think it's something they ever thought of either. She switched legs and rolled the other stocking off quickly. Well, maybe if no one can think of it, it would make it easy for them to stay invisible, keep out of the way. Oh, you're worried for them. Rose sat back beside me, putting her arm through mine. Aren't you worried for the girls you knew in Odessa? Of course. Rose frowned, puzzled. I know I should be more upset, but Odessa seems so far away now, and the girls I knew... She moved her head from side to side. I can only pray that God has been merciful to them and to all the family we left behind. She paused, staring into the air, then she looked back at me. Aren't you getting undressed tonight? Yes, I started to undo my shirtwaist. Goodke's probably fine. Yes, probably. Rose started to say something else, stopped, started again. Do you like being a girl, Hava? Girl? I don't feel like a girl. I know. You're all grown up and serious, studying so you can get out of tobacco. What I mean is, would you rather have been a boy? I looked at my hands, the way the yellow stains spread like an old map into the creases. How can I know that? I could earn more money. The boys at my factory earn 50 cents a day more for doing the exact same thing I do. You think that's something? In garments, only the men can be cutters, and some of them make $25 a week. You think that's hard to do? They should do what I do. But they get $10 more than the most experienced woman. They have families, though. And what? We have no obligations? We get to spend all our money on fancy waists with ribbons? So maybe you're the one who'd like to be a boy. Finally, I got my shirtwaist off and stood to step out of my skirt. Rose laughed. No, boys, I've had enough of them in my own house. You see how Mama spoils Harry, even when she knows he's taking advantage. And Aaron's so full of himself. Who wants to be like that? She made a sour face for a second. There's only one thing boys can do I wish I could. Oh, I smiled at her, turning the gas jets down after putting my clothes away. What's that? Kiss you. I froze, my back to her for what seemed forever. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you, she said. I was just teasing. I turned around. Even in the shadows, I could see her face was pink with blushing, her blue eyes glittering as though wet. Chava, I'm sorry, all right? Don't be sorry, just tell me the truth. Did you mean it? Yes. Rose took a deep breath. I took one too, sitting down beside her. I also want to kiss you. I had the sensation of being on the sea again, pitch and roll, moving inside a different element, not attached to the earth anymore. Rose leaned towards me, put her hand on my cheek to turn my face so we could see each other in the light that came from the street. I was worried looking at her, at the olive of her face, but Rose appeared happy. So if you want to, and I want to, who starts? I pulled the tenement air down to the bottom of my lungs. This was harder than going out on strike. I moved my lips onto Rose's. Together. We had been lying in bed together for more than 2 years. Careful, cousins, left side, right side, I'm worn out, me too, good night. No. I changed my mind as the kiss engulfed our faces and my hands found the soft flesh of her shoulders and pressed her close. This was easier than going on strike. This was easier than anything.
Thank you, Max, for sharing the video. I hope everyone enjoyed seeing it as much as I did. Thank you to the San Francisco Public Library for digitizing it for us this evening. They were real heroes in helping to make all of this happen. It continues to inspire me to hear Elana's words and remember how passionately she felt and acted about lesbian literature and culture to make it a reality in our lives. As I said before we started, if you wish to see the full reading of Elana, along with Lucy Jane Bledsoe, who is in the house this evening with her cat, we are making that available on our YouTube channel. I'm going to drop the link to the full video into the chat as well. As I was thinking about this program and this moment to think about Elana 1 year after her death, I wanted us to end with a moment of reflection that both honors Elana as a Jew and also respects her decidedly non-institutional practice. So where I thought we might at this point recite kaddish, I knew that that was not something Elana would want us to do. So I invited Elana's friend Tova to do this honoring and ceremonial moment with us. I'm going to give a brief introduction of Tova for those of you who do not know her. Tova is a Jewish lesbian from a working class background. She recently retired from doing communications work for equity and inclusion at the University of Oregon. She writes, presents, talks, workshops, trainings, and divrei Torah, and does some photography work. She's been published widely and was a former editor of Bridges, a journal for Jewish feminists and our friends. You can watch her Eli talk on Jews, class, and queers at elitalks.org/Tova. She lives in Eugene, Oregon with her partner, spouse of more than 35 years. Please join me in welcoming Tova. She is going, and I'll give Tova the little sketch of what we want people to do at this point. Tova has written something for us to share collectively as a community, And Max is going to share the written text of what Tova is going to read in a shared split screen. And when you see the italics parts, we invite you to recite those with Tova, though with your mics muted, so that you can hear, so that we don't mess up the sound too much in our Zoom world. So we can recite the italics words together, and then Tova will read the non-italicized words as a part of our kaddish for Elana. And Tova, if you want to add instructions to that, please do, because I just ad-libbed that, which, as everyone knows, I'm never comfortable doing.
Hi, all. Thank you, Julie, for this opportunity and this honor to honor Elana, and and thanks to Elana, who even after her death continues to support and inspire my writing, which is pretty phenomenal to do after your death. When Julie asked me to do this, I was just trying to think of what the feeling is about kaddish. And for those who don't know what a kaddish is, it's a traditional morning prayer that's said usually daily, depending on your religious affiliation, for the first year after someone dies, and then every year on the anniversary of their death. I just wanted to quote Marcia Falk, who explains that, quote, "The traditional kaddish is not a dirge, but a chant of affirmation. The kaddish provides a celebration of continuity in the face of rupture and loss." So I hope that I've done that justice and that I've done Elana honoring. And as Julie said, there's a little bit of a repetitive piece at the beginning and a couple of times during the piece. I do have a few friends with me, so you'll get maybe a little sense of it being a group thing, which is part of a traditional kaddish. Is there is the mourners talking, and then the congregation joins in all together. So thank you. Kaddish for Elana. We remember those who have come before us. We celebrate those whose lives have taught us. We honor those who have passed. We count, we note, we mark the time. The days, their birthday, our birthday, the weeks, the holidays, the words we shared, that time at the beach, the months, the note in the mail, the phone call we had, the dances we danced, the words spoken and not, the photos of those times. We remember those who have come before us. We celebrate those whose lives have taught us. We honor those who have passed. We count, we note, we mark the time. A year, the first cycles of grief, stages of the moon, getting used to grief's waning and waxing, the circling of a hot sun, sweat pouring from our eyes, tears named sorrow or laughter, as we remember that time and that other time. A first year, a first cycle, memory and loss, the trip you had and the ones you won't, the Academy Awards you can't discuss, the writers group with the empty chair, the words not spoken, the words remembered, the touches missed, that empty air where she should be. To praise life is to embrace all of it, the cycle, birth, death, and after, a seed struggling to break through, the fruit overflowing, creating juice pouring out of our mouths, the cups running over. That one flower that blooms early and goes first, the ones that bloom all at the same time but leave and scatter one by one, that one that seems to hang on forever, but it too, in time, lets go so that the death of winter can arrive, which always feels just a bit too soon, an ancestor that keeps giving so much to so many. She wrote, "I swear we will never forget you until death So we praise all of life, the cycle, birth, death, and after. We remember, we count, we note, we mark the time. We celebrate, we count, we note, we mark the time. We honor, we count, we note, we mark the time of our ancestor who we shall not forget. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tova, for those words and for sharing them with us this evening. I have some other thank yous. As always, I thank Max Bacher, who is a wonderful collaborator and co-conspirator with me in the Sinister Wisdom events and helping us every time we gather on Zoom. I also want to thank the Bay Area Lesbian Archives, who's another wonderful collaborator for Sinister Wisdom and co-sponsored this evening, and also was and is and will continue to be an important part of Elana's legacy as Bala moves in and utilizes Elana's home. I want to thank Diane Sabin, Elana's executor, and Babs Lorney for sending us the books that we are distributing. Diane said yes to the opportunity for us to distribute Elana's words and make sure that they continue to be in the world. And Babs did the amazing effort of boxing up the 17 boxes and shipping them to my house. And I know that was no small task. So thank you, Diane and Babs. There will be more tributes to Elana in the fall 2023 issue of Sinister Wisdom, which is scheduled to be published on October 15th of this year. So shortly, issues will be in my office in early September, and it will be mailed to all subscribers. And there's a beautiful tribute to Elana in there. The issue is in Sinister Wisdom 132. The title is We Teach Sex to Everyone, and it includes a beautiful tribute that Judith Katz co-curated with me. And I thank Judith for all of the work that she has done on that. And it's a beautiful thing, and we're very excited to share it with you. Again, I'm almost through all of my email. I've been out, but we're shipping out copies of Moon Creek Road. If you haven't had an email yet from me and you don't get one by 5 o'clock tomorrow, email me again. I'm digging out from under hundreds of emails while I was traveling last week. So as we prepare to end this program, I have two comments. First, I want to invite everyone to think about how you will carry on the work of Elana Dykewomon in your life and help her name continue to be spoken and her work to move forward. Second, we'll have the full song as our final song, They're Falling All Around Me, recorded by Sweet Honey in the Rock. As you listen to the music, please take time for quiet reflection, remembering Elana, or feel free to share memories of her with all of us in the chat. When the music ends, I will end the Zoom call. I thank you all for joining us this evening to remember Elana. And again, think of how you will continue to celebrate her life and legacy and move her work forward.
Falling all around me, they are falling all around me, they are falling all around me. The strongest woman